Me or Marty, we see cuffs or coffins, you're gonna end up in the dirt.
I got something coming for you, baby. Your psycho bit don't curb me, boy. You hear me?
When we approach episode 8 with the title Form and Void, this not only represents the most fundamental of the binary opposites we've been making drama of throughout the season, but it also represents the dilemma that Cole's walked for some time, which is why life instead of the alternative?
Still see things ever? It never stops, not really. What happened in my head is not something that gets better.
In that way, this is going to be the capper on our thematic, character, and investigative concerns through the series. This is the end.
Somebody ought to give you a good hosing. Well, reckon you'll keep another day. Be good, I'll bring you some more water around noon.
So far, every scene has been tied to Cole or Hart's perspective. For the first time, we take the killer's perspective.
Now that the interrogations are over, we've now completely moved into the present tense. So anything is allowed in terms of what we see and where we see it from.
So this is significant in that I'm pulling aside the curtain and here's the monster. And this is who he is. I think he's more complicated and nuanced and tragically evil than a lot of the serial killers out there. If you notice their interactions, they relate to each other almost like children who've been left alone to play forever. I think it's really important what Childress says, you know, it's been weeks since I left my last sign. He wants this confrontation. And as he says, he believes this will lead to an ascension for him, wherein he is capable of a kind of transcendence that he believes can only occur through these sorts of sacrifices.
Don't move! On your knees, now.
No.
The chase for Childress eventually leads them into a series of tunnels, and we find what was a smaller scale articulation of the killer's psychotic mythology and mindscape is now writ large inside this space. I mean, the twig sculptures are now things you have to walk through.
Looking for one of the locations, we ran into this old pre-Civil War fort. It was all overgrown with vegetation, and thought that'd be really amazing if, you know, the Childress family were living by this coastal area and there's this old fort they just made into their own sort of backwoods temple.
To your right, little priest.
Childress the whole time is goading Cole onward. He wants this. He's been begging for this confrontation.
I think Childress is definitely aware he's reaching his climax. You know, he's about to pass on to another plane. He's completely, I think, engrossed in the mythology he's created in his sort of splinter religion. He doesn't believe death is the end. So I don't think he has the same fear of it as you would think a killer would. He's not fighting for his life in the same way. When they finally get to that moment where Cole's on his own, Hart also in part of his mind knows that Cole would be perfectly willing to die. So I think part of him is to be there to prevent that from happening, and the other part is doing his job, making up for not getting the bad guy originally.
It seemed fitting to me at the very end that each man saves the other's life in a very decisive way.
Here! Here, we're here!
It's two men fighting for themselves and fighting for each other, right down to the finish.
It's just one story. The oldest. What's that? Light versus dark.
This is the place I knew we would see when I first started the scripts is the final hospital scene between Hart and Cole.
It's the story of two men who had these completely different versions of themselves 17 years earlier, and over the course of some of the largest events of their life are forced to reckon with them in a way that probably delivers them in the hands of a more honest sense of themselves.
And I believe what Cole articulates there is actually extraordinarily optimistic and not based in sentiment. It's based in physics. Optimism is no more necessarily an illusion than pessimism. And that's what Cole's admitting at the end in the only way he knows how.